Yes, I did say that we're changing gears now to another topic very related to politics, but this time largely situated in the courts. When the Supreme Court gave its judgment in the appeal filed by the candidate of the PDP in the 2019 general elections, the presidential candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, it did not give its reasons immediately. It sets another date to give its reasons as with regards to the general elections conducted this year. And on Friday, just last week Friday, the reasons were eventually given by the Supreme Court, and to the consternation of some, the counsel to both the PDP and the candidate of the PDP did not make any appearances in court. However, the Supreme Court decided to still go ahead and give its reasons. So it's those reasons we seek to examine this morning. But first, not without asking if it was proper for the counsel of the PDP and that of the presidential candidate not to have shown up in court. We have with us this morning Mr. Kasim Afegwa, who is spokesperson, Presidential Campaign Council of the PDP. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
I think it's defunct now.
It's not defunct.
I'm just a member of the PDP now.
Okay. Well, at least you are Presidential Campaign Council spokesperson.
The elections have come and gone. The courts have made their final pronouncement, so
that is now doesn't stand anymore. Okay, so well, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Mr. Joshua Alobo, who is a constitutional lawyer and human rights advocate. He's also a stalwart of the APC. You're welcome.
Thank you,
to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you,
Let me ask you: do you think it was proper, first and foremost, that councils did not show up?
Show up at the
Supreme Court.
What to do? What when the Supreme Court had given its earlier verdict on 30th October, saying that our case lacked merit and that they will give reasons later. What are we going to be listening to? Reasons why a particular case is said to lack merit. What are you going to be listening?
That's a snub. That's a snub of the Supreme Court.
They deserve it.
Does it not mean that you didn't go there with an open mind, with the knowledge that you could either win or you could lose?
No, it's not. It's not about that. We like decisions that are taken based on informed knowledge of the law. It's not, now discussing it is like crying over spilt milk. But for God's sake, it's about time for our justices and our judiciary to rise up to the occasion of ensuring that they lay good precedents that will guide proper jurisprudence in the way and manner that election and electoral issues are handled.
Informed judgment of the law.
Yes,
You're talking about eminent jurists
in the
Supreme Court of Nigeria.
That judgment was political. The judgment was political as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't based on law. Because whether you like it or not, if the Supreme Court is relying heavily and agreeing unanimously and totally to what was handed out in the Court of Appeal, at the Court of Appeal, the Presidential Tribunal, it means that those 66 grounds of appeal that were tendered before that they didn't look at it, because those grounds were on point of law, and we expected that those issues should be looking at critically. It is not just about victory. We're not, in the final analysis, it's not about giving victory to Atiku or giving victory to President Muhammadu Buhari. It's about the content and character of our jurisprudence. And when you lay bad precedents, it will haunt you in future. Now the Supreme Court had told us that President Muhammadu Buhari does not need to attach certificates.
There is no law.
There is no law that says you attach certificates.
There is no law.
But listen, how do you, if you apply for a Supreme Court job, how would I know that you have gone through the processes if you don't attach certificates? Don't forget that Justice Tanko presented his certificates, photocopies and all of that, and some were claimed to have been eaten up by termites and what have you, when he was put forward as a Chief Justice of Nigeria.
We will come back and examine the issues when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Well, Mr. Kasim Afegwa, a member of the PDP, and Mr. Joshua Alobo, a chieftain of the APC, are still with us in the studio. And we're looking at the reasons given by the Supreme Court in declaring President Muhammadu Buhari winner of the 2019 general elections. Remember that candidate of the PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, had gone to court on certain grounds, and the Supreme Court gave its reasons why those grounds lacked merit on Friday, just last week. And just before we went on break, we were talking about this being a political decision. Let me ask you, Mr. Olobo, I mean, you have heard his defense of lawyers not putting up an appearance in court. I do know, I've been to court once. When your matter is called, people have to, you know, show attendance, that they actually make an appearance, so to speak. How important is that in the judicial process? And how would you want to respond to what he says when he says that the decision of Supreme Court was not exactly grounded in law, but more a political decision?
The question is two ambit. One, once there is a sufficient notice to any counsel for that the matter is coming for judgment, is a convention that one or two representation has to be made, because their notice was sent on Wednesday, and according to the Supreme Court rules, even text message is sufficient notice to both parties. So for no appearance, we should not glorify that. Is a lapse on the part of the parties. But even like in...
Is it a big deal? How big
it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But even in the Supreme Court rules, if your matter is slated for hearing and you are not there, and all the briefs has been put in, the court can go ahead and deem the appellant brief or respondent brief to be argued. So that means that it's not a big deal. We should not look at that aspect as if it's a big deal, as it were. But to say that the Supreme Court decision is political or otherwise, at this stage, it will not be fair to our jurisprudence. For one, you see, the Supreme Court is not only a court of law, it's also a court of public policy. That means that there are a lot of decisions that the Supreme Court takes that is outside the ambit of the law to stabilize the political terrain, like what happened in Celestine Omeha and Rotimi Amechi. For instance, he go beyond the ground or the law, as it were, for him to declare someone who has not participated in the campaign or in the politics as deemed to be the candidate because the substitution was not properly done. But that was what necessitated the amendment to the Electoral Act. Whatever decision of the Supreme Court that is made, if the only body that can correct it is the Parliament, the National Assembly, by making or amending one or aspect of the law in order to drive the system. So I will not say that the decision is political.
No, but you just said...
no, I will not say it's political.
The comments that you just made, you said it's not just a law...
It's not only the law. We cannot say it's political because...
No, just a moment, let me land on that question. It's not just a law-interpreting body. It's also a policy-making... Yeah, and you gave an example. So people will be asking or wondering whether this is one of the areas where it has made a policy decision rather than something based in law, because there are fears that this particular decision of the Supreme Court could come back to bite us in the bum just further down the road.
No, if you look at the decision of the Supreme Court, it's based on the Constitution, Section 318, that define what amount to school certificate qualification for contesting the election. So it's not the Supreme Court that is the issue in this, in Atiku Abubakar vs. INEC, is the ground norm, which is the Constitution. Because if, for instance, now, if you look apart from even the certificate that we're talking about, anybody that, to the opinion of INEC, has the literacy ability to read and write, qualified to contest for any election. That shows that the Constitution is the problem in this context of Buhari vs. Atiku Abubakar vs. INEC, not necessarily the decision of the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court is interpreting Section 318 of the Constitution. So if we're, for instance, and it's even appalling, if for level 8 you are required to be a graduate or HND holder before you even attain level 8, why will you make a president of Nigeria to be a school certificate holder? So the Constitution needs to be worked on, and we have amended the Constitution several that we even create problems for ourselves, even in this decision. Because, for instance, now if you look at the fourth alteration that talk about that the interlocutory appeal shall be heard and determined, and the ruling shall be deferred to the substantive judgment. Now, in this instance, none of the interlocutory appeal were heard. That shows that amending the Constitution sometime may not give us the result, because they have amended the Constitution to the extent that there's no need of giving ruling to the interlocutory appeal. that you can defy it to the substantive matter. But now, in this instance, the Supreme Court, in its own discretion, said that they're only hearing one of the appeal out of 8.
Let me take Mr. Kasima Febua up on this one. The fact that the Supreme Court held that in certain matters which were bordering on criminality. I mean, we know that the laws say he who alleges must prove. That's what the law says. The Supreme Court maintained that the PDP was not able to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt, especially when it was talking about matters which bordered on forgery, that the president perhaps could have forged certificates which he presented, the discrepancies between Mohammed and Mohammedu. How do you respond to that? Would you say that you went to court with sufficient grounds for them to find that indeed the candidate of the APC should not have been fielded?
I think our discussion this morning is just to deepen democracy and provide platform for people to ventilate their opinions and all of that, because the judgment has come and it has gone. First and foremost, let me react to what he said. You see, which is also a part of the question you ask, which is about what we canvass for at the Supreme Court, even Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. We are not saying somebody with school certificates should not contest for election, since it fulfills the provisions of Section 318 of the Constitution of Nigeria 1999, as amended. And we are not saying that you can also not contest election if you have the ability to read and write. If President Muhammadu Buhari had just written, "I can read and write," in the opinion of INEC, if they see that, it's a qualification with respect to the Constitution. But we are saying that when you have deposed to an affidavit of laying claim to certain qualifications, it behoves on you to present evidence to substantiate what you have deposed. Because in the form EC008 of INEC, it is written in red, attach evidence of certificates. When you have stated your point, they say attach. Now this judgment is saying that you don't need all of that. That's a new dimension. Fine.
What they're saying is it's not a law.
No.
INEC might stipulate that you should attach.
We are saying the same thing.
Yes.
If they say, if you are applying for a job as a newscaster, they say you must show evidence of school certificate or university degree and all of that. Then you applied, and you now put an affidavit and that your certificates are this or that. It is now left for your employer to say, if you are not showing evidence, okay, you are qualified or you are not qualified. It's as simple as that.
You don't think that we should make a law that stipulates that candidates should
begging the issue. It is begging the issue. You cannot be reading, I think the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal were reading the mind of President Muhammadu Buhari by forum shopping for evidence that do not exist. What we canvass at the courts are very clear, which is that you have sworn to an affidavit that this is what you have. Please present evidence. On their own, they brought a witness, who is the star witness, who was classmate of President Muhammadu Buhari, who said, no, our certificates were never collected by the military. And you say that your certificates have been collected by the military. And all of that, what further thing do you want? But that is okay. We have had the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court of the land. When I'm contesting for election, subsequently, which I hope to do, I will just put an affidavit that my certificates are missing, or they are with PDP, which is the party, and if PDP cannot present it, the law, according to Supreme Court, says you don't have to show evidence of a certificate. After all, you can say that I can read and write, and I can speak even on television. That's enough qualification for me. That's the implication of this judgment. I think we need to get serious about what we want in this country. It's not, when I was talking about political judgment, I'm happy that Joshua Alobo made reference to issue of public policy. You see, because it's not all the time that you put issue of public policy, because it affects the heart of judgments and verdicts that you give in any court of law.
Now, in the spirit of that, though, there are huge questions as to, I mean, you were a member of the APC as of 2015 when President Muhammadu Buhari contested. In fact, the candidate of the PDP, the presidential candidate of the PDP, was a member of the APC. He contested the primaries of the APC in 2015. And he supported President Muhammadu Buhari to contest in 2015. Am I right? If that is the case, aren't there serious issues, serious questions to be raised as to the grounds upon which candidates go to contest certain things. If in 2015, President Muhammadu Buhari was eminently, because that's the ruling that the court of the Supreme Court has given, was qualified to run, even with the support of the candidate of the PDP, can he then turn around in 2019 and say, this man had no certificate to begin with?
It's very simple, and I find it very, very laughable. You see why? In 2015, because we were in opposition, we thought the PDP, as it were, under President Goodluck Jonathan, were being economical with the truth when President Muhammadu Buhari, then General Muhammadu Buhari, was the candidate of the APC. We thought because the presidency controls the military and all of that, that they were being economical with the truth and not wanting to, showcase his certificate, because he claimed that his certificates are with the military. Now, we were expected, having become president in 2015, from that 2015 to 2019, whatever discrepancies that existed, he should have been able to put them in place, if they were. And now, having been president, we can no longer accuse the ruling party then of twisting the military to declare something that does not exist. So, at least he is now the commander-in-chief. We should expect that, since you say that the certificate of the military, call the military, get the certificates. If they were trying to hide them in the past, this time you should be able to showcase them.
The issue...
And now, the PDP, as it were, then, didn't challenge his qualification in the law court. I know that two individuals went on their own, in their own personal rights, but not the PDP, as it were.
This is not just about this is not just about the two candidates, because this is about the political parties and the grounds which they raise. Because some people will talk about, when you question, say, people will say you have every right to question, but the bigger question will now be for the military institutions. If somebody is getting up to the rank of a major general within our institutions without any certification, shouldn't we be questioning those institutions?
We should be.
And the same thing goes for the APC as well, because shortly after that, it would seem that it was a counter attack, so to speak. Then we started hearing that the candidate of the PDP is not a Nigerian. Oh, he is Cameroonian. This is somebody who got to the level of the vice president of this country. There are serious issues to be, to be asked as to the issues that political parties take to court.
I think the APC were just trying to be ridiculous in that claim of Cameroonian or no Cameroonian. When they saw that we've raised this issue of qualification and all of that, they needed to bring that one just as a distraction. We know the backroom politics. We know what goes on and all of that. In the heart of those people who are even counsellors to the APC, they know.
Interestingly, we now had to revisit history, and we found out that a certain part of Nigeria was ceded to Cameroon. This was even Bakassi before Bakassi came up and did not come up. But the issue I'm asking right now is sometimes the issues that politicians bring up. You have said that we should question the military institutions. Shouldn't those questions have been thrown to military institutions? That how did this person, if indeed our generals are getting up to general level, or our military men are getting up to general level in our institutions,
no, I think it's the
without qualification?
No, I think it's the entry qualification that is the issue. In those days, people were not so much interested in joining the military. So the hierarchy of the military, usually go around secondary schools and all of that to recruit persons who they want to be enlisted in the military. So that was the period that people like someone like General Muhammadu Buhari, who is now president of the country, was recruited. And if you look at the sequence of documentations, you see that there are too many contradictions, conflicting reports. This result is carrying 5 credits, this one is carrying 6 credits, and all of that. All of this put together shows that there was a faulty background. Having been enlisted in the military, you are now made to undergo military training. So our point of departure was, what basis did you use, what qualification did you use ab initio to get into the military? If you say your certificates are with them, show us the certificate, show us evidence. That's our point of departure. And when you are in the military, of course you go through trainings, schools and all of that. Once you get to captainship level, all your trainings are purely leadership training. So the point we must take home, from your question, is that we should begin to interrogate those who want to lead us in different categories of elections, be you governorship, House of Reps, Senate, and all of that. We have seen scenarios in the past where people forged certificates, and in the final analysis, they were exposed and they let off the hook. But which institution does the clearance? That's the question you should be asking ourselves.
So let us go to Lagos now. I understand Ayo has questions.
Yes, just one question for Mr. Alobo, and of course Mr. Fegwa may also wade into it. Mr. Alobo, you mentioned the other time that for the office of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Constitution, says that we can, take a school, school set, leaver, while for a clerical position in any organization, we're asking for a minimum of first degree. Shouldn't we be asking the National Assembly to do something about it? 20 years into our democracy in this Fourth Republic, shouldn't the National Assembly be asked to take this on now, or shouldn't the National Assembly take the initiative to take this on now? Do you think they have the political will to do that?
Yes, that is a very fundamental issue, and that is what we address this lacuna that is already created or supported by Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The National Assembly has that power because they are even in the process of amending some aspect of the Constitution. But the question will ask whether the vast majority of that constitute the National Assembly will want to tinker that aspect of the session, since he favor a lot of persons that are not ready for rigorous academic exercise, but are ready to lead without without having the mental capacity. It's not for the office of the president alone. Even for chancellorship, we must upgrade and look at what obtainable, even in US, that we borrow the presidential system of government, by making sure that whoever wants to become a leader in Nigeria expose himself to intellectual exercise, to be able to reason outside the box. Look at the problem that is confronting Nigeria, because most of our leaders are not ready. They are not deploying their mental prowess to solve problem. That's why you see they spend bulk of the time in overseas, enjoying the comfort of other jurisdictions that have actually deployed this mental exercise in terms of selecting their leaders. So I think the National Assembly, this is the right time for them to amend Section 318 of the Constitution and make it at least minimum of first degree, irrespective of the class of graduation. Because now we have a surplus manpower, we may justify why that Section 3118 was incorporated in the Constitution about 40 years ago. But now I think time has changed for us to upgrade our educational requirement for leadership position. Even though education is not the yardstick of becoming excellent in leadership, but it's very, very important in analyzing bulk of document that comes to them, so they don't become rubber stamp in their decision making.
You want to quickly respond to that?
Yes, I will respond to the extent that, you see, those who frame the Constitution, like you said, have a reason for doing so. And that reason has been overtaken by time and the kind of sophistication that now attends leadership recruitment process. You see, in leadership, particularly for a country as diverse as Nigeria, we need persons who have at least the first degree knowledge, to understand and be able to process facts and figures, process situations and processes leading to taking decisions that will affect about 200 million Nigerians. It's about time for us to leave this looking at one side, educationally skilled in favor of one zone against the other. Let me make a very valid point, which a lot of people are also not considering in this whole issue. You will agree with me, or you will understand that the Supreme Court judgment was actually given outside the statutory 60 days. They made a pronouncement, but the reasons for that pronouncement was coming 65 days after, because November 10 ought to be the termination date. And in its own judgment, ab initio between CPC versus INEC, they said even 1 day cannot be added to that 60 days. It's in the Constitution. But in this case, we saw them giving the verdict, the reason for the judgment on the 15th of November, which ought not to be.
We'll see if lawyers agree with you in that regard. I know that there would definitely be opinion differing on it, because some people might argue that the judgment has already been given as the reasons that have not been given. But we have to thank you both
Reason is part of the judgment.
Oh, indeed. So you agree with him largely?
I agree with him, but if you agree with him, it's two-way side. If you say the decision of the Supreme Court is not valid, then you fall back to the Court of Appeal. Head or tail, it doesn't favor them.
Okay. Well, you have heard one lawyer at least. We started from here. We have to thank you both for your thoughts this morning on the program. Mr. Joshua Lobo is a constitutional lawyer and human rights advocate and also a member of the APC. And Mr. Kasim Afebwa used to be a spokesperson, presidential campaign council of the PDP, and remains a member of the PDP.
Before we go, some of your messages, some of your reactions to today's program. We'll begin with this one from Salisu Mohammed on voter education. And it says, civil society, yes, with good intentions, but fail in their duty of voter education long before elections. Then when election comes, they expect perfection. They need to be in the face of the electorate, educating them. That's Salisu Mohammed.
This one is from Zemo, says, isn't it funny that the body responsible for conducting a country's election does not have the power to cancel such elections? Our electoral laws need to be reviewed, and most importantly, it's high time we migrated to electronic voting system.
I don't know who is laughing at that, funny as it may sound. Well, this one is from Olusegun_09, says, tackling electoral violence. Sincerely speaking, for electoral violence to be eradicated in Nigeria, the cost of governance for any public servant must be cut down drastically.
And this one is from the Nigerian Union of Allied Health Professionals on our chat this morning on Nigeria's healthcare sector. Talking about Nigeria's health sector, says the solution to Nigeria's health sector problems lies with the labor unions in the health sector. Unfortunately, professional beauty contests, disharmony in the sector have distracted the unions. Today, Nigerians die for reasons they should have lived, and it seems normal. Really
so sad. And still on the same subject is Odebode Joseph saying on the health insurance matter we chatted about, the NHIS or any health insurance scheme in Nigeria is a scam, sincerely. From my experience as a medical practitioner for 7 years in Nigeria before leaving the country out of frustration. Note, corruption in our health sector. Of course, that's the last of the ones that we can take for today. But then you can go on Twitter and, of course, our YouTube channel as well as other platforms of Channels Television. You will be able to read as many comments as you would find quite interesting. And, of course, in a few minutes, we are supposed to, we understand that the election processes in Kogi State and maybe even Bayelsa as well will continue this morning. So please stay with us. We'll bring you blow-by-blow account as they happen. In the meantime, stay with us. I'm Ayo Makinde.
And I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.